Hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming to my talk today, because I know there's other interesting talks going on right now as well. I'm really grateful to be here myself. It's my first time at CARE, and I really look forward to hearing about everyone's work over the next 3 days. I'm campaigns manager for Compassion and World Farming. I'm also campaigns director for SAFE in New Zealand. I'm on a sabbatical year on a specific project for Compassion. Like many people, I grew up loving animals. I had pets, I used to love going to the zoo, and I like rescuing animals. And aged 11, I had my Lisa Simpson moment when I began thinking about farmed animals and I went vegetarian. But it took me several more years into my 20s before I went vegan. I've now been involved in animal protection for over 12 years. I started as a volunteer for an anti-fur group called Respect for Animals, who I then worked for, and I've worked for PETA, SAFE, and now Compassion. My real passion is helping farmed animals, because given the number of animals that suffer and the amount of suffering they go through, I think it's one of the areas where we can do the most good for animals. Sorry, technical issues already. Oh, there it is. Okay. So in my 12 years as a campaigner, I've learned many different things. How rallies can show power if you have a lot of people attend, and the opposite if you don't. How social media can be a very cost-effective way of reaching a lot of people. I've learned that we have limited time, so we have to choose wisely what we do for animals. I've learned the importance of maintaining your integrity and having compassion for people as well. I've learned that we need to work together to help animals. And of course, I've learned that we never stop learning. Today, I want to tell you about a project that Compassion and World Farming has been planning and working on for the last year that we need your help with. So Compassion is an international farmed animal welfare organisation with outreach in all of Europe, China and the US. There are around 120 staff working for Compassion around the world, and Compassion's main mission is to end factory farming. Compassion does this by conducting undercover investigations that reveal to the public the problems with modern day farming. We do political lobbying campaigning, and we have a food business team that concentrates on working with companies in order to get cage-free commitments and get animals out of cages. And we also have a meat reduction campaign. I wanted to address the elephant in the room at an animal rights conference talking about animal welfare. Where does animal welfare fit in with animal rights? There's going to be a great talk from Aaron Ross from the Humane League during this conference, so I only want to touch on it briefly. So to be clear, I'm an animal rights person, but I also believe that animal welfare campaigns are helping to advance the animal rights movement and advance veganism. It's helping to wake the general public up about the reality that animals go through. It can help them feel empathy for animals, and it can help them realise their own ability to make a difference. The end of factory farming isn't going to resolve everything for animals. It's just one of the steps that we need to make in order to make a better world for animals, one where they're respected for being individuals and one where they're actually free. One of the things I've learned in more than 12 years of animal activism is that the horrors animals experience on factory farming cannot be underestimated, and it compels us to be pragmatic because every day for them is a living hell. I recently watched a short clip on LinkedIn from Matteo Colpi from Animal Equality, and I thought what he had to say was so good, I wanted to say it now. He said that we can choose between two ways: to reject any progress because it doesn't coincide 100% with our objective, or to advance constantly, one step by day, making sure that we don't come back. The abolition of cages is a step that brings us closer to the goal. So progress is moving forward, and whether you come from an animal welfare perspective or an animal rights perspective, we are all moving towards a better world for animals. So I don't want to traumatize everyone with horrible slides with factory farmed animals, and I think that as animal activists we all get why factory farming is a problem. It causes immense suffering to animals because they have no control over their lives. They are caused to experience extreme frustration, and they are prevented from performing almost all of their natural behaviours. And from our perspective, it's totally unethical to use animals like their production units. Something that I wasn't aware of until I started working for Compassion is the scale of the problem in the EU. And Compassion's just produced this report in I think it's about 8 different languages, and they did a lot of extensive research over every European Union country to see how many animals are in cages. So the fact is that extreme confinement systems are still a feature of farming systems throughout the entire EU. Over 300 million animals spend all or a significant part of their lives caged. So that's sows in farrowing crates, layer hens in so-called enriched cages, and there's also quail and rabbits, calves for a certain amount of time. This figure of 300 million, of course, doesn't include the many meat chickens that, although they're not caged, they suffer extremely nonetheless. And members of the public are being fooled by these so-called improvements. So whilst the EU ban on battery cages came into force in 2012, over half of commercial egg-laying hens are still kept in so-called enriched or colony cages. They have little more space than this report per bird for their entire lives. It is disgusting. And I've been inside a battery system and an enriched system, and just the scale of it is truly horrifying. And then there's the animals that many people aren't so aware of, like rabbit and quail. Quails have less space than a beer mat per bird for their entire lives. And being in a cage is particularly problematic for quails because when they are afraid, they fly upwards and then they can hit the top of the cage, causing injury. So this chart shows the current percentage of cage-free versus caged across the EU. As I've already mentioned, about 50% of layer hens are caged, 94% of rabbits, 90% of ducks used for foie gras, and nearly 90% of sows are still caged. So it's clear to me and many of us that intensive farming is the biggest, most urgent animal welfare issue of our time when you consider the number of animals involved and the amount of suffering that they go through on a daily basis. It really isn't an exaggeration to say that life is hell, and it's every single day for them. So we need to stop it. But how can we build on the wonderful work that is already being done for animals, that many of you in this room are already doing? How can we help the millions of animals currently suffering in cage farming on a political level? How can a group of people with relatively small budgets compared to animal industries take on the might of those industries? How can we give animals the life that they deserve, and how can we get the general public to help us do it? We work together. So we don't have their budgets, but our biggest resource is each other, our passion and our determination. We have the power to create change. Each of us knows this, and that's why we're involved in animal activism. But together we can create even more change. Across the world, there's already amazing collaboration going on, such as the Open Wheel Alliance with the corporate campaigning across the world. And Compassion, with their new campaign, wants to see even more happening. So we've been working on our special project, but why now? And why this campaign? So it's clear that animals are suffering. They need us to act decisively and efficiently to end the use of cages in farming as soon as possible. National legislation or species by species legislation would take more than our lifetimes to implement. We can't wait that long, and animals can't wait that long. So now is the time to accelerate the timetable for a factory farm-free Europe. Thanks to the work of animal organisations, there's been absolutely incredible progress on a corporate level. And we're now seeing a European food industry on the cusp of change thanks to corporate campaigns. I found this absolutely astounding, what's been happening with cage-free commitments. It really is inspiring, because when you work as a campaigner, you often spend your time thinking, is change ever going to happen? But it really is happening now, and it's thanks to determined people like us in this room. There's also been progress on a legislative level. Some EU countries have already banned or about to ban certain factory farming practices. For example, Sweden doesn't cage pigs anymore. Austria and Germany in the near future will be banning enriched cages. And significantly, in March 2017, the European Parliament voted by a huge majority to back a report that calls for an end to cage rabbit farming. A problem of the scale of cage farming needs people power, organisation power, and an ambitious response. That's why we've launched our biggest campaign ever to make history for farmed animals across the EU. We believe a European citizens' initiative is the vehicle for us to do this. An ECI is an official mass petition by which Europe's citizens can urge the European Commission to propose legislation within its remit. It gives us a mechanism by which to secure a hearing in the EU Parliament on the issues of cages, and it requires an official position from the Commission. But the catch is that we require 1 million people to sign our petition within 1 year. This is what our ECI asks for: a decisive change for animals, an end to the cage age. Sorry about the rogue Slack logo on there, I only noticed it was too late. So we are asking for the Commission to propose legislation to prohibit the use of cages for layer hens, for rabbits, for pullets, broiler breeders, layer breeders, quail, ducks and geese, farrowing crates for sows, sow stalls where they aren't already banned, and individual calf pens where or not already prohibited. By galvanising mass public backing in Europe, we are going to demonstrate to policymakers that citizens from across the EU are united in their opposition to cage farming. When we're successful, we'll raise the profile of animal welfare within the general public and amongst those policymakers. We're going to build a movement of citizens calling for an end to the use of cages. And we're going to push the Commission to consider new legislation that ends cage farming. And we're in excellent company. 10 months ago, Compassion put out a call across Europe for other organisations to join us in this campaign. And to date, over 140 NGOs and charities in 26 of the 27 European countries answered us. Together, we are a network of some of the most successful and strategic organisations in the world, united to help caged animals. One of the keys of this project is working together, having a true spirit of collaboration. So to enable this, Compassion's created for free and with no strings attached, eye-catching digital resources, including unique websites that are branded with each organisation so that each organisation can collect their own signatures. The campaign's themed through the eyes of a child, so as in what children would think about the horrors of factory farming. Some of the tools we're providing include social media cards, campaign videos to inspire the public to sign the petition, and later in the campaign we're going to have interactive elements such as a way for people to collect signatures en masse as an individual. We've also got leaflets, paper petitions, draft media releases, good guidance on paper petitions, and we've translated many of these elements into all of the languages of the European Union. And together, this network of NGOs and charities is using their research, their lobbying power, their undercover investigations, and their digital campaigning for a common goal to end the cage age in Europe. Just a couple of weeks ago, our network launched our ECI at the European Parliament in Brussels. Over 150 people, including MEPs from every single party, came along to hear our plans, our campaigning and our lobbying vision for the next 12 months. And apparently it was the biggest turnout of MEPs ever for an event in Parliament, so we were very happy to hear that. We've also been running national launches in the last couple of weeks, which will go on in the next week or so as well. This is Warsaw, Paris, Prague, and Amsterdam. So our time is now. All the organisations I've shown are working together. We're in the early stages of our project, but we plan to pool our resources and achieve a successful ECI for animals. And we're already partway there. As of yesterday, we have 85,000 signatures now since I checked late yesterday. So we're already on our way to achieving our target. Whilst we are very determined to see this project through, we can't be complacent because it isn't an easy ask. Every single element has been translated into the languages of the European Union, and this includes multiple versions of petitions, leaflets, websites. We've made 120 websites, and it's also a hugely complicated petition. An ECI requires a lot of personal information from people, and it can also differ between country to country. So if you're in Germany, you might be asked for a different bunch of data than if you were in Austria, for example. And in fact, there's actually only ever been 4 successful ECIs that have reached the 1 million target. So we have a long road ahead of us. There's also the worrying fact that signatures can also be thrown out if there's minor errors as well. So for these reasons, we've actually set our target at 2 million, so that we will show the European Union with certainty that people really do feel strongly about this, and we can account for the numbers of signatures that will be discounted because of minor errors. We also need a plan for what's going to happen afterwards. So there's been a lot of preparation going on for this campaign, which has been actually incredible. I've only worked for Compassion for 2 months, but seeing what everyone's done for the last year working on this, it's phenomenal how much work's gone into it. But it doesn't end when we hand the petition in. We need a plan for what's going to happen afterwards as well. So here's some of our key dates based on a successful ECI. So we have until September 2019 to collect our 1 million or 2 million signatures. Then there's a validation period by each country. So if you signed in Germany, it has to go to a competent authority in Germany to be checked that it is actually valid, that everyone entered their details correctly. Then after 3 months, the signatures would be approved by the Commission. And then in 2012, there will be a series of hearings or meetings at the EU Parliament to see what the outcome of the petition is. And obviously there's going to be a lot of work during that period as well to make sure that this isn't seen as just a petition, because this is the beginning of something very big. So we've now set in place the groundwork for a powerful public campaign. It has the momentum to drive landmark change across the EU to free animals from the horrors of caged farming. But this is just the beginning. We really need to campaign hard over the next year to get our 2 million signatures, and there's a lot more work that needs to happen. We are still seeking new partners to join us. So if you're in an organisation and you haven't joined the ECI, please come and talk to me, because we're all in this together and we really need as much help as we can get. It's digital signatures as well as paper, so wherever you are, you can help. And we particularly need people in Austria, Romania, Hungary and Malta. So also if you have contacts there, Hungary and Malta have been a particular problem, to reach out to people. And also we need individuals to help us too, by sharing on your own social media and getting your friends to sign. And if we're going to reach that target, we really all need to be in it together. So who do we do this for? We do it for the hen who longs to scratch in the dirt, but she's in a cage and she can't even flap her wings. It's for the pig who doesn't have that lucky life like Esther the Wonder Pig pictured here, and she can't even turn around. It's for the rabbit who spends her entire life on a wire bottom floor, prevented even from hopping a few hops forward. All of these animals deserve a life free from the cruelty of cages. When we come together, anything is possible, and we need each other to make real change. We as animal activists are already a very loud and meaningful voice for the billions of animals suffering worldwide. And we have right on our side. We have passion and we have determination. With your help, we will be successful with this project. When we work together, animals win. So we need to keep our eyes and our hearts on the prize. Imagine for a moment the new profound difference that we can make for animals together. Sorry, didn't need volume.
No, it's in there.
Oh, okay. I thought you were watching my video.
Oh.
So, thank you so much for listening to me. I'd like to encourage you to please sign at endsthecagage.eu. And if you want to get involved, if you're an individual who wants to help collect 100,000 signatures, or you represent an organisation, please come and talk to me, because we really all need to be in this together, and we'd appreciate all the help we can get. Thank you.
Thank you a lot for your insight. And now we can move to the questions. So if anyone has any, just raise your hand. I'll just check the time. Okay, we have time for that. So, any questions? Okay.
Hello. So can you tell us more about the report you showed us at the beginning?
Yes. Sorry, that light's in my eye. This is the Italian version, and despite living in Italy, I don't yet speak Italian, so I can't tell you exactly what it says, but it's a comprehensive report. It looks at every single cage farming system across the EU. It's looked at how many animals are being farmed in these systems in each country. Some of the information was... I should be talking into this. Some of the information was quite hard to come by. We had to do a lot of phone calls and a lot of research with actual producers, I believe pretending we were students doing this research to find out particularly about quail farming and more. If you want a copy of it, I can email it to you. It's going to be available on the website soon. Every organisation that is working with us on the ECI is able to have copies of these and brands them with their own logos as well, so that they can use it for their own outreach and meeting with policymakers. It's perfect because it really goes into a lot of detail about how animals are kept. Currently in a special place just for people with the ECI, working on the ECI, but it's going to be on the website, on Compassion's website, and available for the public to look at too.
Okay. Any other questions?
I can project.
Okay.
What about the mission? What's the atmosphere there, and have you talked to the members, and what's the, I don't know, it's not like a obligatory or by law for them to, if we get the 2 million votes, so they can reject it, they can accept it, make the laws after it.
Yeah.
So what's the situation with them?
Yeah, getting the required number of signatures doesn't mean that they have to accept this, of course, but it does show a very strong sense of feeling amongst the public, and it does actually force them to stand up and actually listen to what the public are saying. There's only ever been 4 that have reached the required number, so it is going to be significant when we reach our required number. Actually, one of the 4 that did reach it before was an animal testing one. And so I think that just goes to show that we as animal activists are very determined. So yeah, there's going to be a very long process afterwards, which in all honesty, because I've only worked on this project for about 2 months, I'm not totally sure of the plans beyond that, because it's all about the petition right now. But it won't be, here's our petition, we'll make a law. There's going to be a lot of lobbying that's needed afterwards. I was really heartened at the launch in Brussels to see so many MEPs keen to stand up and say their opinions on factory farming and cage farming. It was actually quite a surprise to me that people from conservative parties were keen to say so as well. So I think it goes to show that it was the exhibition and the launch that had the biggest number of MEPs ever turn out says something about the feeling in the EU Parliament.
Hi, do you know what happened with those 4 successful initiatives as a result? Because people and media ask us about the practices of European Citizen Initiative.
I knew someone was going to ask me that. And in all honesty, I don't know, because I've only worked on this project actually for 7 weeks. So I hope there was a good outcome for them, but I can't answer that. Sorry. I'll get the answer for you.
What are actually the specific legal changes that you want to get through? Are large, overpopulated sheds still going to be legal, as long as they don't have cages, or what's the way it works?
I'll just show you. I'm just going to show you the slide again so we can go. Yeah, this one. So this is just a little snippet from the page on the EU Commission. So we invite them to propose legislation to completely prohibit the use of cages for layer hens. So that'll mean no more enriched cages. No more cages for rabbits. There's millions of rabbits caged right now. Pullets, which are the young birds before they're ready to lay eggs. Broiler breeders are kept in cages, which most people aren't aware of. They won't be after this law goes through. Layer breeders, quail, ducks and geese. So it will mean the end of foie gras force feeding in cages. Farrowing crates for sows will be gone. And obviously this one says we're not already prohibited for sow stalls and individual calf pens because some countries already prohibit their use. So it's quite specific about what we're asking for, and we're very determined to make this happen.
So the worst thing that the industry will be allowed to do if this goes into effect is keeping animals in large sheds?
Yes.
And
That will be the next step.
sorry. And the last question.
I come from Greece, and this evening at 5:30 we have the presentation of compassion in world farming in Greece, and a lot of it's going to have a lot of media support. What I'm thinking about is, you said that we can collect signatures also through paper. Okay. Because in Greece there is this fear that because we ask for ID numbers and things like that, and we are overtaxed over there, so what I saw is that they were just thinking about putting the signature because we ask for the ID, and I'm glad to hear that we can do it by paper, because then we can approach older people that do not have access in internet, and I mean families, friends, in a more easy way. So there is a way we can, there is a form we can download and do that thing?
Yep, yeah, we can provide that to you.
Okay.
It is definitely one of the major problems of this petition, because it's not a simple one where you just put your name and email address. It's very complicated. We often require people's passport numbers, sometimes even their address, the name of their mother and father, and living in a world where people are quite concerned about data protection. Yeah, it's going to be a constant stream of explaining to people that we are not asking for that information because we're going to do something dodgy with it. It is the Commission asks for that information, whichever country chooses for it. And afterwards, it's all kept on a secure server. Afterwards, it's all going to be destroyed. No one can see people's passport numbers. So we're going to have to keep explaining that to people.
It's great to know that, and because it's a very special thing we need to know, so we have a different approach to that, to collect as much signatures we can have. Okay, thank you.
So thank you once again, and after a short break we will move to the next lecture.